Hello my little tofus and welcome back. Today we're going to look into what makes a positive mindset and how to wire yourself to think positively. You can refer to this pep talk if you want a little pick-me-up or if you need some thoughts and advice about turning a negative thought into a positive one. Thinking positively doesn't just fall into the realm of thinking positively by itself. There is much more to it than that, and it takes more than just think positively or just think happy to have happy and positive thoughts. There are so many factors that can become this thought and influence it, which can be positive or negative or somewhere in between, and can even make or break it for some people. I'll use myself as an example. Some things I follow when it comes to achieving and maintaining a positive mindset can be broken up into a few parts. So for example, I like to think the best of situations and the good things that have been achieved. I like to be assertive and not a pushover. I don't like to think too much about something unless I find it strange. So in other words, overthinking. There's more to overthinking honestly, but we'll just touch on that one a little later or at another time. Not attaching too much emotions to something, so I have a more logical response. These are just some of the things I follow. It sounds like a lot, but it kind of all comes together as something that automatically happens, and that's pretty much what goes on through my head on a basic level. In context, it's something like this. For this example, I'll use a retail environment. If there was a situation between myself and a customer who has come back incredibly unhappy and unsatisfied with a product they've purchased from my company, even if I was the one who didn't serve them, and they wanted a refund but didn't have a receipt, it would seem like they're out to get you because the customer thinks it's all the same. The surprise or even shock from someone you don't know coming up to you and expressing their disappointment in a very agitated manner over something you have no control over will give you a negative feeling towards them and the situation, unless you're used to it and have experienced worse. This will already make you have a feeling of dread before you even want to start helping them, and may or may not impact your mental state. But this is where it starts. For myself, as it is a work environment, I cannot have my personal feelings get in the way as is just work. What goes through my mind at this time is that the customer isn't actually attacking me. They're just dissatisfied with the product and don't know what to do with their own emotions and want me to do something about it because they don't know who else to turn to. And because it's just work, I will need to keep my problem-solving hat on to get to the bottom of the issue. So that's when I would ask questions to de-escalate the issue and to get to the root of the problem. And from there, dealing with it in the best way I can in an assertive manner so they don't walk all over me. And that's because some customers, they will use their dissatisfaction to get more from you. And when they know they can do that, some of them will actually take advantage of it. So, being assertive but still professional is a lifesaver in this type of situation, so you have to hold your ground. And after the issue has been dealt with, it's good not to think too much about the situation because regardless, it's already happened and there's nothing I can do to change it. That's where I don't overthink about it, but make a few mental notes on how to make future similar situations more seamless for myself and the customer. So it turns into more of a lesson learned than a bad encounter that ruined my day. Because at the end of the day, it's still work. And the work that I've signed up for has these types of things that happen on a varied basis. So since I'm already there, why not make the best of it? There's always good and bad in every situation, but it depends on your own view of what's good and bad, even if some things are obviously good and bad. Of course, not all situations go this way, and if they're incredibly rude and a safety hazard or even a disruption to the business, then they'll need to be escorted out by security and or dealt with by a manager or higher level of management. That's just a little example on how I would deal with things in this type of context. I'll go over some of the points I mentioned before and break it down so it's easier to digest. There are pretty much 4 points. Point 1. Thinking and making the best of situations and the good things that have been achieved. This can really be separated into two, but they kind of go hand in hand, so I've put them together. Thinking the best of situations is pretty much looking on the bright side of things. It could be looking at the positives and negatives of something, or having an option that is both beneficial and detrimental to you. Finding the one good thing in the bad, and so on. There's a lot of examples I could list, but it really depends on the context and how you think about it, since what's bad and what's good is up to you. Like, if you don't like donuts, but you can only pick between 2 donuts, both aren't appetizing to you. But if you have to choose one, choose the one you dislike the least. That's also considered making the best of the situation. And being in a job that you hate and you don't like how boring it is a situation for yourself and your growth and mental state. But you can't leave yet because of some reason, so that's also going to be bad for you. So what are you going to do? Do whatever you can at the company before you're able to leave. Make sure you get a good reference from the company, get all the necessary training you need, learn whatever you need before you leave. Like transferable skills you can use in another job, or even your dream job. That's also making the best of a situation. You might hate it, but if you can use it in a way where you can get benefits from it, that's more helpful to you than just hating it and thinking about how much you hate it. Otherwise, you're going to drain yourself in every single situation where you hate something without doing something about it, especially if you can't get out of it straight away or in the near future. These are just some examples, but you get my gist. And as for the good things that have been achieved, there's no set timing for it, only because, yet again, it's dependent on you. Something good that may happen can be before, during, or after something. Or it could just be something you noticed during the day. It could be that you decided you wanted to not let your anger control you if something doesn't go your way, and you deal with it in a more calmer way than usual. Or you could be working on a coding project and it doesn't work out, but you find out what's making it not work, and so you've successfully figured out what didn't make it work and also troubleshooted it to make it work. It could be something small, it could be something big, but it's up to you to see what's considered good for you. If you don't really think anything is good, then I'd recommend you start thinking just a little bit more about the things around you and being more aware. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on small details that might change situations you're in. Point 2. Be assertive and don't be a pushover. Because once someone knows that you're a pushover, they're going to use that against you if they can use you. This is for your own benefit and will save you heaps of time, effort, and mental energy in the future. And it's not to say every single person out there is going to use you, but there's that possibility that someone will. Not everyone is a ray of sunshine or a super trustworthy person, so you must have people who you trust near you. And if not, make some. Otherwise, the ones who can walk all over you will walk all over you. And there's a multitude of things you can do, But the first thing is actually being aware of what someone else's intentions towards you are. It might seem difficult, but having a basic understanding of what someone wants and whether or not you can give them what they want is key. Then that's when you have to do some decision making. Will you give them what they want, or will you decide against it? Even in this decision, there's a bunch of things for you to consider, such as whether or not it's going to become a recurring thing. For example, if you're in the workplace and if a colleague is a good worker and they've asked you for help, if it's within your capacity and it won't impact you negatively and they're super grateful for this one task you've helped with, then by all means, go for it. That specific colleague might also end up being helpful towards you if you wanted to ask them something they excel at a later date. So they can actually become a trustworthy colleague and a good one at your workplace. On the other hand, if you get an uncomfortable gut feeling that may not go away from that colleague, then you might have to think about the context and a little more, and whether or not it will actually affect you down the track. If it's someone you can say yes to without any negative repercussions, even if they're a little shifty, then by all means, go for it. But if it's someone you want to say no to, for example, if they want to take over a large chunk of the project that you've been working a while on, then you have to tread carefully, because depending on the person, they may or may not take it personally, since they've already greedily tried to take most of your project from you pretty much. And if you end up saying yes in this type of situation, they're going to know that they can use you as a pedestal and take whatever they want if they can pressure you enough. And you don't want that, do you? And that goes for personal relations as well, not just workplace ones. And really, you just have to feel out the situation. A basic rule of thumb is to let them down gently, and if they're persistent, then setting boundaries can help to assert yourself as someone who cannot be walked over. If it's someone who's not respectful of that, then that's another situation that you'll need to figure out. But the good thing is, most people will respect your boundaries if you tell them a basic reason as to why. If they ask too much, take a step back and reassert. It's easy to say all this, but putting it into action is much harder. So, give it your best shot. Now, moving on to the third and fourth point. They're intertwined, so I've put them together. Not thinking too much about what others think or feel unless it's necessary. Having to become detached. So, pretty much giving logical responses not influenced by emotions much or at all. That's just the general gist of it. It's not to say they cannot have emotions, but controlling them in tough situations or whenever necessary is important. For example, in professional environments, or if you've unfortunately landed yourself in a situation where you must interact with someone who's unreasonable and disrespectful, that's when being calm and assessing the situation is most beneficial to you. It may also be good for other aspects of life, such as if you have a fight with your friend or partner, or if you want to let someone know you're not happy with their service. Regardless, it isn't necessarily something that you can use for everything. The whole point is to think clearly and not act rashly. And obviously, not everything will work in your favor, but it's good to try and de-escalate as well as by being the calmer one in any given situation. And this ties a little into overthinking and can help with reasoning with yourself about many things without raging emotions present, which can make things better for you in the long run. As for not thinking too much about what others think or feel, it's not to say to not care about what others think and say, but only to whatever is not applicable to you. Or if it doesn't enrich your life in any way. For example, criticism is something that can help better your life by calling out behaviors or things you need to work on, which will, in turn, better yourself. Not to say every single criticism is good, since that's really up to you, but you pretty much get the gist, don't you? And that's not to say that you should ignore everyone either because you don't agree with what they say. But be a bit more flexible in how you think. Why are they criticizing you? From what point of view are they coming from? Are they actually trying to attack you or make you better? Think a little bit more about it and see if it's something you can rally behind. No need to take it personally. Otherwise, if you can't do that, then there's no way for you to become calmer in situations similar to whatever you're being reactive about. Of course, like always, it depends on the context and how you want to go about it, and if there's any history and whatnot. And then that's when becoming detached comes into play. Because once you don't have or have little attachment to something, then it makes it easier to think logically. For example, if you've got an attachment to the city you live in because everyone you know lives there, but your dream job is in another country, what are you going to do? Will you take the leap and go for your dream job, leaving everything behind, or will you look for something closer to your friends and family? That's a very tough situation, and it depends on you. If you move overseas, you won't be seeing your friends and family much unless you're messaging, calling, or video calling, or visiting. You might only be able to visit them a couple of times a year at max. And in the new country, you might be able to make friends there that you can hang out with outside of work. But if you decide you don't want to go for your dream job and find something similar in your home, then you're also letting your dream job slip right through your fingers. You might not have the opportunity again, but you'll stay close to your friends and family. In the end, it depends on what you want, what your goal is, and if you believe you can do it. That is all there is to it. Because at the end of the day, attachment is what's stopping you. It's just an excuse for something. But if that excuse is something that makes you happy and stable, then choose that. Otherwise, if you're confident, then go for your dream job. Well, that's just an example, and it can get a little difficult once it gets personal, but it's also about what's most important to you. But it's also about what's most important to you and acting in ways where you'll make better decisions for yourself and ones you won't regret. And as always, thank you for watching and or listening. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I'll see you soon in the next video. See you later!